Hello and welcome to today's episode of Her Aversion. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Aversion. The Her Aversion platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Terri Ferreira. I freaking love that name. Terri's challenges have covered a large scope, everything from childhood trauma, a young pregnancy, and now doing the work to heal. She is most proud of her authenticity and specializes in helping moms who are ready to take action by healing past trauma so that they can have a better connection with themselves and their loved ones. Welcome, transformational expert Terri Ferreira. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, girl. Thanks so much for being here, hanging out with me for a little bit of time. I know we are all busy, so I appreciate you and the time that you are deciding to spend with me. So tell us where you're from.
So I'm actually originally from South Africa, but I am no longer in South Africa. So since 2019, I kind of decided to start this new journey of self-discovery and figure out where I actually want to be in the world. And actually, I want to be everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. So that's quite exciting. I'm currently in the UK, though. So I'm living in Wiltshire in the south of the UK. I am gearing up to head up north, though. Not too sure how I feel about having to deal with that cold. But I do miss home sometimes. I suppose that I miss the people, the culture. But my plan is just to keep going.
I love it. Very, very fun. Just bring a winter coat. That's all you need is a winter coat.
I know. And they said after the first year, I should be okay. It's getting a little cold now. So I'm just like trying to be brave. You know, you don't feel it. You don't feel it. You're not ready. So I should be okay. I've been here a year now, so it should be much better.
I love it. That's fun. I actually went from cold to warm. I was just tired of it. So 10 years, moved down to Florida, which is like basically living in a tropical jungle in the United States. And I love it down here. I love the heat. So you and I swapped places. You went cold, I went warm.
But, well, we can swap again if you like, you know. I think what's made it so difficult is I spent 3 years in Thailand, you know, traveling Southeast Asia, and it's so hot there. So I had no winter at all. So I think that that's really what was the shocker coming here, you know, feeling that winter again and not being used to it.
Yeah, definitely. I totally get it. Well, I think the awesome thing about that is pivoting. You know, a lot of people never leave their home state, never leave their home area. They are raised there, and you look back 60 years later, they're still there, and their kids are there, and their grandkids are there. So the awesome thing I love when I talk to individuals who have moved, you know, totally pivoted areas is it gives us all the encouragement to know that we can do that. You know, we can do that. We can pivot. We can move away from friends and family and start over and build a new life.
Absolutely. And so that's so interesting that you mentioned that, though. What do you think pushes us to do that? For me, I really felt like I had no choice. And I think that if I didn't get to that point, I would still be stuck there because I always spoke about moving to the UK. You know, when my son was born, we spoke about moving to the UK. He's 10. I've only been here a year, you know, so it really took something drastic to happen for me to eventually leave. Did you feel the same?
Well, I mean, we specifically literally did move because of the cold. I was actually, if you want to know, I was actually doing door-to-door sales outside. That was the industry we were in. We had, I think, 6 different offices in 4 different states here in the United States, and they were all freezing during the winter. So our sales would obviously plummet because we're doing outside sales. So finally, we looked at each other. This was my ex and I. We looked at each other and we were like, what are we doing? We need to be working in a state where it's warm year round in this industry. So that's why we came down here. So it was predominantly for financial reasons.
Makes total sense, actually.
Yeah, totally. So I want to ask you, you know, you've done a lot. You've been all over. You're married. You've got a child, 2 children. Two children. So, you know, I can only imagine the ups and the downs from childhood till now. So I want to ask, what has been one of the greatest challenges that you've gone through in your life, and what did you learn from that challenge?
So that's a really good question, because it's like, which one to choose, you know? And in that moment, like when you're being challenged with your entire everything, your entire being, it's like, oh, I'm not going to make it, you know? But outside of having a child at 16, because that was like something else, but I think the biggest one for me probably would be drug addiction, or addiction, you know, as a whole, I guess, is just really difficult for anyone to get through. But I feel like for the first time in my life, well, it's been a while now, but for the first time in my life, I can actually say that I am free of this addiction, you know, that I actually don't feel it within me anymore. I don't feel the need to numb. I don't feel like I have to run away from anything. So it's something that I honestly feel like I've overcome. And it was difficult because, you know, it's like a cycle that you just get stuck in, really. You know, you think you've done it, you think you're clean, and then I'm going to take these out. Can you still hear me if I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because they're falling out. I think my ears are too small. With me actually overcoming that now to the point where I think if it was in front of me, it wouldn't even bother me, has really taught me compassion, but like compassion on a whole nother level, you know, for other people. And obviously to learn to have self-compassion for myself, you know, not to beat myself up for what I've done, but for other people, because I just see someone to share their story or they share their struggles and they just get trolled, really, like, oh, I would never do that. You're such a disgusting mother. And you just see a lot of this on Facebook and social media. And it's heartbreaking because you don't know that person's story. You know, you don't know where they come from. You don't know why they feel like they've had to turn to drugs of all things, you know. And it really takes so much away from them. So if they can come out of that and overcome it, it's huge for them. So you should really support them. So I think compassion more than anything. And I'm having a lot of this lately where I just feel like compassion is the message in this lifetime for me anyway, like love and compassion, just to spread that love and to have no judgment for others, really, you know. We all have our story. I mean, I've seen so many here, you know, that have been shared. So I would have to say that that's the big one, actually.
Excellent. How did you fall into that cycle?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you without it.
How did you fall into that cycle?
So I think that from a young age, I just wanted to be accepted. I really feel like even in my school days, and obviously alcohol is just the norm, you know, everyone drinks. And in South Africa, you know, it's a big thing for people to drink, and in the UK as well. So in school, you know, we would always like be drinking together at a young age because you all want to fit in and be cool and do those things. And then when I actually met my daughter's father, we would go out, and I had no idea that they were all doing drugs because I didn't know anything about it at the time. But then I fell pregnant, obviously. And then once I had my daughter, it kind of got introduced to me in this group of his friends. And I thought, oh, I'll just try it, And yeah, one thing leads to another. I always swore I would never, let it control my life. But I think after we split up, and then you're just kind of in that cycle, because that's the vibration that you're at as well, is everybody around you is doing it. And if you're not doing it, you're not cool, Whereas now, me being a different person, I haven't met anyone since I stopped that's doing it, So it's so great. And for me, if I'm not drinking, nobody really thinks I'm weird. So that's really great. But just, I think that it's becoming so normal, unfortunately, in maybe South Africa, maybe all over the world, I don't know. But, where I come from, everybody was doing it. So you just kind of fit in, and that fits into all those limiting beliefs that I obviously had, that need for acceptance, validation, love, all of those things. So, but if I actually, have to go deeper into it, where it really comes from, I guess, is that numbing of all that pain and suffering deep within inside. But obviously I didn't have any idea of what those emotions were, or what was really going on in my mind, in my body. So I think it's a mixture of things, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Having a baby at 16, I feel like would be kind of life altering enough to kind of want to numb for a second. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
How did you get over it?
How did I get over the drugs?
Yeah.
So I packed up my life, and I just became a different person, really. I just had enough. So in 2019, in January, I actually ended up in neonatal ICU with my kidneys. And in South Africa, I always had like kidney issues, and I was in marketing. So I was in quite a stressful job environment as well. And again, that environment is just drinking, and everybody's doing that stuff. If I think back, it's so crazy to even think that that's who I was, or that was the life I was living. I can't even have a few drinks now without having a panic attack. It's quite silly. So once I was lying in that neonatal ICU, my son started grade 1, and I couldn't go to his first day of grade 1. So it's just, that guilt of like, what a terrible mother. And obviously the drugs had been on and off, so it wasn't consistent, from when I was I'd say about 18. And then I just decided, like, this is it. You've got to do something. You can't go on like this anymore. At that stage, my husband, who I'm with now, we had separated. And I just decided I was going to Thailand. And everyone just thought, oh, she's just having one of her moments again, she'll get over it. But I didn't. Within 3 weeks, I sold everything in my house, got rid of my car, packed my bags, and I left. And obviously in that time, I got completely clean. I completely changed my life. And this is a big part of the work that I do as well, is you have to become that person, whatever it takes for you, but you have to take radical responsibility for your life and your actions. I can keep going on about my past and saying that's why I did drugs. No, eventually it became my choice, So once I left and started this new adventure, my kids joined me in Thailand, and I just never looked back. I haven't even thought about it. I guess that I just work endlessly on being a better version of myself and being a better mom every single day, that I feel happy and I feel content. I feel loved. I feel worthy. So I don't need to numb that emotional mess that was going on inside anymore.
What was the pivot with deciding you wanted to be a better person? Did you hear something, read something? Did somebody say something? Did you go somewhere and hear something? Who or what vibration came into your world where you decided to change?
That's also like really hard to pinpoint. I don't think it was any one situation or me reading a specific book. I feel like there's always been something inside me to say, this is not who you are, so a lot of the time, even if I would have a few drinks or something, I would feel like I was stepping outside of myself, even if I do it now, I know that that's not who I am. So why should I don't want to say lower because that sounds so bad, but it is kind of like lowering your frequency to kind of vibrate alongside with other people that maybe don't fit in with you anyway, So I think that I just always had it in me, and just getting sick for the last time, I think I just felt like something's got to give, and in that separation with my husband and I think I completely spiraled out of control. I think that I had become quite codependent as well without even realizing it. I always said he was the codependent one, but actually I think it was me. And I have no problem saying that now, because we're all about radical responsibility now and owning our BS, right? So I think that it was just a mixture of things, looking at my son and just wanting to be a better mom, looking at my daughter and wanting to break those cycles, because my mom had me at 16. My mom's mom had her at 16. So there's definitely something going on there in the ancestral pool, right, that we had to break. So I just think it was that knowing deep inside that this is not you,
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think has been one of the biggest shifts that you've made in your life?
I would have to say definitely packing up everything that I knew and just getting on that plane. It was my first time on a plane ever. I had never been on an airplane. I'd never left the country, anything like that. So that was a huge, huge step for me. And in all honesty, in that time, I was seeing this guy, I believe to be maybe my karmic partner. And that was like the toughest 3 years of my life in comparison to everything that I've been through. But I'm so grateful for it, even though he really broke me down. And it gave me the opportunity to rebuild myself. And obviously being in a narcissistic relationship is not very nice, but it taught me so much. And I remember being in Chiang Mai actually, and he just hooked up with this Thai girl, and as if it was nothing, and just kind of left me there. And I always had a fear of being alone, really. And for the first time in my life, I was absolutely alone, like really alone. My kids were not with me yet. I felt like I had already written off all my friends. I knew no one in this country. And I just lay in my bed, like crying, but such a painful cry. Like my whole body was aching. And I just feel like that's when the penny dropped. I just had all this flooding of emotion and memory. And I just realized it's me. It's always been me. I'm the one that created this life. I'm the one that chooses to stay on that, what we call it, like mouse wheel, right? Just going around and round. It's me. I create the chaos because as a child, my life was so chaotic. So I don't know anything else. Didn't have a very good understanding of what sexuality was, or even being in a sexual relationship. It was all tainted for me because I was molested as a child. And obviously this whole whirlwind of a life cycle that I'd had, and choosing to ignore that and not heal it, led me to that. And that was it. I remember it like it was yesterday, because I literally didn't get out of that bed for 2 weeks. I just lay there and cried, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's when I decided, okay, this is it. Got to get up, got to heal this, got to start journaling, got to see where does it come from, making amends, forgiving, understanding. And, we block so much of that trauma out of our lives or out of our mind, that we've got to dig deep to actually find it,
Yeah, I definitely agree. At one point you said that the partner that you were with that was not nice to you taught you something, taught you stuff? What did he teach you or she teach you?
So I think that just, the way that you treat people, and just, I think the roles were maybe reversed. And I hate to say that because I don't feel like I was ever that bad in my marriage, but I was in an abusive relationship before I got married to my lovely husband, Vernon. And I don't know how he stayed with me, because by the time he got to me, he would just say something and I was ready to go, because I was so used to having to defend myself physically, mentally, verbally. So, whenever he would just like disagree with me, I was like ready to go at him. And I feel like maybe with the partner in Thailand, maybe the roles were reversed a little, like I became the quiet one and he was always like ready to fight and to argue. And I think that also just taught me to kind of maybe try and respond rather than react, just see it. There's two people in this situation, and just to try and look at it from that way. And I think that just the way that I was left there in Thailand, or I felt like I was, and he had no regard for the fact that he had just gone on with someone else or anything like that. I think it just teaches you to look at the world differently and just to, I don't know, really, like a part of me can't understand it, because I feel like I would never do that to someone, but I also can't say that I would never do that. I haven't lived his story. But just the healing around it, I think, is so important. And this is what I want to share with people, that other people don't get to choose who we are, or they don't define us. Our past doesn't even define us, So I think that was the biggest lesson, and forgiveness more than anything, because a lot of people will say, how can you forgive somebody that done those things to you, But you have to, for yourself, to set yourself free. So yeah, forgiveness, I think, is actually a big one.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I think the important thing to recognize is that forgiveness isn't for them. It's not like you're letting them off the hook, or the things that they did are erased, but it's for us, so that we can move on.
And I think that when we really truly start to forgive, and you can tell me if you resonate with this, because obviously you have a lot that you've had to forgive in your past as well. But I feel like those memories almost become a bit hazy, almost like it was a dream, because now there isn't any emotion attached to it. It's no longer controlling you, right? Yeah. So sometimes I even have to think about, did that really happen,
Yeah, definitely. I was teaching a session yesterday with about a dozen women, and we were talking about where you put your focus or where you put your energy is where the grass will be green. So if you're continuing to rehash and remember negatives, bad things, then that will stay at the forefront of your brain. But if you decide to water or pay attention to the awesomeness of your life and where you are now and the pivoting that you've done and the growth that you've had, then that grass will turn green. So that's very much what you were saying. It's like you do, if you don't pay attention to it and you do forgive and you just move on, it does. It's weird. It's weird. It really does fade.
It just sets you free, right?
Yeah.
And it's so important for us to remember that the subconscious doesn't know the difference between then and now, So if you're choosing to stay there, you're like traumatizing yourself over and over and over again. You're never going to come out of it. But we have to move through it and, work through it and work with it, because it becomes a part of who we are and our story, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that doing stuff like this and sharing also has a lot to do with the healing, because when we start to teach with our story, it really hones in, at least for me, mentally, that it was given to me as a gift to be able to teach other people. And I think that's had a lot to do with my healing. Does that resonate with you at all?
Absolutely, yes. I feel like there's so much of our purpose in this life, in our healing, right? And in our story. You know, we have to be the voice for others so that they can learn to use their voice and then do the same thing. That's how we're going to raise the vibration of the planet, essentially, right? Which
Yeah.
is super exciting. I feel that like that's happening right now.
Yes, definitely. What do you think is the number one lesson that you've learned about life?
Number one lesson. I guess it would probably be that our past doesn't define us. I think that so many of us get stuck there. You know, I know that this was me for a very long time, and it's got to do with the mind, right? Like our beloved mind over here that just takes control, and the ego essentially. But just remembering that the past doesn't define us. You know, this is our story. Yes, that was a chapter of our story, but it doesn't have to be the whole book. And we can at any time just rewrite that story or rewrite that chapter. We can choose to be somebody else. And I know it's so difficult because we live in a world, unfortunately, where, well, it depends what you pay attention to, of course, but we live in a world where society expects us to be a certain way, especially as women, men too, but of course we're all women here, so we'll just stick to that one for now. But you know, that you have to wear all of these masks, you have to show up as a wife, as a mom, all of these things, your worker, we always in masculine. So it's really tough for us to try and be authentic because we're worried about being judged. We're worried about letting people down. So I think that just being able to redefine ourselves and choose who we want to be is so important. And I think that that's been the biggest thing that has set me free, or that is at least pushing me that way, is that I don't feel like I have to worry about others anymore. I know that with me being okay and me looking after myself, I can be a good mom. I can be a good wife. But the moment I'm not looking after myself or not doing what is good for me, I can't be those things. I can't show up for anyone, really. So I think it really is just moving out of that, becoming present in the now, and choosing you first all the time, you know, whatever that looks like.
What does that look like for you?
Purple hair, no makeup.
I love it.
Barely ever a bra.
I love it.
Yeah, so I think that's just important.
How do you think that thought process has helped you as a wife and a mother?
So honestly, I think that the only reason Vern and I have gotten back together is because I got my shit together, and he could see that, right? He could just see that I was healing and that I was becoming me, and you know, I was living my life according to my own rules, nobody else's. You know, he watched our journey in Thailand. I got to, instead of being this worker and being in the system and being part of society, I chose to do something that was online at the time. And I spent most of my time with my kids. We started exploring. I got to actually know them. We got to have real conversations. I wasn't pushing them to do their homework or getting them off to school so I could go to work and quickly cooking them dinner and putting them to bed. There was no more of that. So it actually became like a real connection, and we really got to know each other. And then Vern decided to join us in Thailand, and the rest is history. We ended up back together, and I'm so grateful for that. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't choose me first, if I didn't choose to get on that plane for me, because I knew it's what I needed. And obviously all the work and the healing that has come from that. Even now, you know, we might not have the same beliefs, but he supports me 100%, and I support him. And he allows me to do the things that I need to do, whether it be additional learning, healing, whatever. You know, I have my time in the morning to go and do my meditating and whatever's good to me. And he gives me that space. And I think that that's really what's important. None of that would be happening if we didn't heal separately so that we could come back together as a family.
That's fantastic. When you were talking about the story with your children, as far as, you know, not chasing them around the house to do homework or, you know, quickly doing this, quickly doing that, how does that in your mind equal authenticity?
So I guess that is unfortunately the way that most of us are living, I guess, most moms, because that's what we've been raised to do, kind of, you know, that's what our moms were doing, that's what we're doing. And unfortunately, our kids go to school. Well, it depends on what you guys think and believe. My kids don't go to school. So I guess that authenticity is whatever you choose, right? Whatever's good for you. And if that's really what's good for you and that's where you feel happy, then that is your authenticity. But I find that the women that I work with, the moms that I work with, that doesn't really make them happy, you know, running around being everything for everybody else, except what they need. It really isn't being authentic, is it?
What do you mean your children don't go to school?
So my kids are homeschooling. So not that they don't learn, it's just that they don't go to like normal school with a normal curriculum. So when we left 2019, we actually started traveling Thailand, and then we were looking at options, and we kind of fell into that world schooling, homeschooling without even really giving it any thought. And I feel like it's the best thing that I ever did for them. Obviously, that's just my choice, but actually seeing them thrive and become these amazing human beings without being told who to be has been absolutely amazing. And I wouldn't change that for the world. And that's why now that we've been in the UK, I never forced them to. I asked them if they wanted to. My son has no interest in going back to school. He'd rather just, you know, carry on doing what we're doing. But my daughter, she's artistic. Bless her. She's so awesome. You guys should check out her artwork on my page. She has decided to go to college. And, you know, what was so amazing for me is that she had the choice. You know, she came to me and said, Mom, this is what I want to do. I want to go to college. I didn't force her to. You know, she had that opportunity. And when I look at her, I'm just so proud of the fact that she isn't following, you know, everything that she sees online and on social media. She's happy to just be herself. And that makes me happy.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. We have a listener that wrote an interesting comment that you might want to touch on. If you want to read it out loud for the audio.
Is this the one underneath here? Being a good mom, what is that? Something to think about? That one? Mm-hmm. It is definitely something to think about, you know, but what is being a good mom? Like, who's asking the question and who are you comparing yourself to? I think being a good mom is whatever is good for you and your kids. Remember, all our kids are so different. And that's why I personally don't want my kids in a school, is because no kid is the same. You know, they're all totally different. But in a school, they're forced to be in one particular box, you know, and forced to be a certain way. And when they're not meeting that criteria, it's difficult. And I think even being a mom is the same thing. You know, we're all expected to be on the same par. Why? We're all different. We all have a different story. We all have a different message. Our kids are different. Our lives are different. We live in different countries, different places. So why? And there's no such thing as perfect. I think just being happy and being real and seeing that with your kids, you know, that was the biggest thing for me, is that I knew I was becoming a better mom when I saw they were happy and they were thriving, you know, and they were happy to talk to me about different things and share their life with me. That makes me feel like I'm doing a good job. not running around, bossing them around, checking all the boxes that somebody else has given me. It's difficult. Being a mom is not easy. We don't get manuals, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to ask, along that same lineage of what you're talking about right now, and I think that this is pretty heavy within the mother community of being good enough. When or what is the point at which we are good enough?
That's really, really touching, actually, because it's so true. None of us feel good enough, right? And I think that we don't feel good enough just because we are following society standards, you know. And for me personally, I was so worried about it's so hard to say. I always worry about my mom watching. Mom, if you're watching, I love you. And I know that you did the best that you could with everything that you have. And I know that. So please, if you're watching, I love you. But, I think my biggest fear was just, bringing a lot of that toxicity, I guess. My mom and I didn't have a very good relationship when I was younger, and I know that I probably wasn't the easiest to deal with, but I was so afraid of bringing that into my own way of being a mother that I think it created an even bigger bridge for me to cross in terms of my daughter. I feel like I've been so worried about all this ancestral trauma and all this nonsense with her that I've actually kind of pushed her away, and I've made it a little bit harder. And obviously being a mom at 16 wasn't easy, so I definitely didn't feel good enough. But I always tell the ladies that I work with that we are good enough from the moment we were born, right? If I had to ask you, a newborn baby, if you would tell me what percentage you would give that baby, it would probably be 100. But if I asked you about yourself, you would probably give like a 40 or 50. And why? Who told you that you're not good enough anymore? So it's so important for us to actually go back and kind of dig up those beliefs and see where they first came from, write them down, see who they even belong to, and see that they're not even yours. And remember that you are good enough. You've always been good enough, but society deems you not good enough. Maybe whatever relationships you have with your parents, schools. Think about us being in school. We're always taught to look for that external validation instead of validating ourselves. So it's no wonder we always think that we're not good enough.
Definitely. How do we rise above that feeling?
I think it's so important to do the inner work. There's no easy way to just snap your fingers and it's all gone. It's not pretty. And in that moment, you probably feel like you're ready to die because none of it makes sense. But once you can just move through it, it's amazing. So it's really just about breaking all of that down. Journaling really, really saved me. I think that's where it all started for me. And writing down the things that happened to me, understanding what happened to me, trying to piece back which one actually happened first, and then start to work through that. See that those limiting beliefs are not yours. They've been passed down by someone else. Somebody else made you feel that way, and then ask yourself, is that true today? This person sitting here now, is that true? Am I really not good enough? Did I really not do those things? Am I not lovable? And you might find that it's completely different. And from there, you can start actually writing your own belief system, start defining who you really are.
Yeah, I think that that's great. For the mothers or ladies listening right now who are resonating with what you're saying and they're getting it and they're like, wow, this actually makes sense, Terri. Thank you so much for saying all of the things. But I don't know where to start. I don't even know, am I supposed to read a book? Am I supposed to watch a video? Do I have to spend a ton of money on classes? What would you recommend for the newbies? What's the first step? What's the tippy toe into personal development, into healing, into doing the work?
So I think the first thing is that none of us really want to admit that this stuff's going on, or we really would rather not look at it because it's not easy to look at, but really start creating awareness, around you in your life. Start looking for the patterns. Are there any self-sabotaging behaviors? Is there a repeated cycle that keeps happening? For me specifically, I always found myself in those toxic relationships, in this loop, the same friends doing the same thing. And it's so interesting, when I went back to South Africa, everybody's still doing the same thing, so you really just have to create that awareness around it, and then own your own BS. Like there's no sugarcoating it. You have to call it out for what it is. And then when you know that you're ready to take action, sure, read the books, do the journaling. But if you're not going to take responsibility for your actions and not actually take notice of what you're doing, nothing's going to get better. Because I can read books, sure, I can read books, but how do I know that they're going to resonate with me? How do I know that they're going to help me? You need to figure out what's going on, and if you've been through trauma, I really, really recommend looking into healing and finding some help. There's so many people online. There's so many books you can read. Louise Hay is absolutely amazing, so you can definitely look at her books. And I am also a huge fan of those badass books, so I will drop them all underneath here. When I get on Facebook later, I'll drop a few links to some PDF books that you can go and read. But essentially, it's just about spending time with yourself, getting to know yourself, because outside of that, you're always going to be living for somebody else. You're always going to be living somebody else's beliefs. So I think with the ladies that work with me, they know I kind of force them through my program to spend at least 15 to 20 minutes alone with themselves every single day, because I feel like that is the key, is that connection to yourself, understanding yourself, accepting yourself, loving yourself. Stop waiting for somebody else to do it. You can do it yourself,
Definitely. What would you wish for?
I would wish for freedom for all. And freedom, I could say the word freedom and it can mean absolutely anything to people that are listening. But for me, when I think about freedom, is freedom to be yourself, freedom to be anywhere, to be anything. And I think freedom to just choose, choose what's good for you at the end of the day. So it was so interesting when I got here from Thailand. Of course, I felt free in Thailand, because I got to be who I wanted to be. I got to kind of redefine myself, and my whole life changed. And when I got here, I felt like I had lost my freedom, right? I was feeling so depressed here. The weather also was not so great. So I remember having a soul alignment call with Bethan, this lovely coach that I have worked with. And she said to me in that soul setting that freedom doesn't have to only be where you are, right? And this will sit with me, that freedom is obviously something very important to me, but it's internal. So even if I move around, I could potentially never feel free, because inside I don't feel free, right? And then I started doing more and more work, like what does freedom actually mean? And I think the biggest thing is just to speak my truth, to be who I am without the masks, without the belief system that was forced on me, and just to be allowed to do that without judgment, So I would wish that for everyone, for every woman. Like, why? Just because we're a mom, do we have to feel so much pressure about being a mom? We should be having fun. We've all completely forgotten how to play. And what do our kids want us to do? They want us to play, but we won't do that because we feel stupid. Someone's going to judge us, so it's just like a cycle. And I see it all the time, with with other people around me. And even when I went back home, I got a bit of a fright when I just saw that anxiety and that stress that all my loved ones are living with, you know, because they are still stuck in that box.
Yep. 100%, definitely. I like that you're highlighting to play and to have fun. That was one of the things that I put a lot of a high priority on with my little one when he was little. He's now 18, but we went to the park all the time, and I always played with him up and down the slides and tag and freeze, and we'd go to the ocean. We'd go boogie boarding for hours and hours and hours. And it's funny, you know, I look back now, you know, he's 18, he's out of high school, going into college, and I literally know that I did a good job.
Amazing.
Like, it's such a good feeling. It really is. Like, as much time, because it's a lot of time, you know, when you're a mother, if you spend the time, you know, it takes away from other things sometimes. And I look back, and I never wanted to look back and think to myself, I wish I would have.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I'm actually really proud of myself for. Like, we did not do the TV thing. Well, I was really poor, so I didn't have a TV. So that
anyway.
But even what I did, obviously, that didn't last the entire childhood. But you know, I did wind up, you know, with somebody, but who had a TV. But even with that, though, always making sure of the priority of spending time with him. And much like you know, I always used to joke that most parents, when their children come home from school, is like, open up your backpack, let's do homework. And for me, when my son came home from school, it was always, put on your bathing suit, we're going swimming. Yes, because that's the important stuff, you know, that's the important stuff. And that's the stuff that they remember is, you know, the laughing and the hugging and the kissing and the, you know, the good times, the snacks and the attention, you know, that's what they really remember. So I love that.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more. And I think that so many moms, including me for a very long time, is that when we weren't doing those things, you know, we were doing what we were supposed to be doing,
cleaning and vacuuming and
then we feel guilty because, oh my gosh, she was a better mom than me, I did it wrong, you know. Then we carry all this guilt, and it's really yucky as well. So it's so difficult. But I agree with you, you know, and just as much as the kids need that, we need that, right? So remembering that you don't always need to be go, 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 go. Like, it's okay to just sit and to paint your nails, to have a bath, to go walk outside. We love going outside and just looking at the sky. Like, that's our favorite thing to do in the evening. So whatever that is for you and your kids, do that. It doesn't always have to be what everybody else tells you to do.
Yeah. I always used to joke that my house, I don't ever plan on my house being in the Better Homes and Gardens magazine. Therefore, it doesn't have to look like that. Like, it's okay. You know, it's okay.
It's a home. It's supposed to look lived in, you know, can't be perfect.
But there's
and I see a lot of that.
There's stress.
Sorry, say that again.
I said there's stress within the community. When you're a mother, there's this stress, could be a stress of
I see it all the time.
All the things have to be done all the time, and then the fun is left at the back burner, and then we're tired.
And it's okay to ask for help. Who would have thought that? Right? Like, we are so stressed about everything, but we don't ask for help because it's our job to do it. But then we're tired, and then we complain, and then we're grumpy, but we'll do it anyway.
Definitely. Well, I
Yeah.
love this. I love this conversation. I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with us. I could talk to you all day. I do want to give a shout out to everyone listening. We have 37 people
Yes.
online listening live. We had a
Thank
high
you.
of 64. So thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay. So that we know where you are and we can send you some love. So I want to ask Terri, what do you do for work? What do you do for all the humans? Tell us what your passions are.
So I think a big thing for me was choosing to become a coach. And I think that that's a huge part of my own healing journey now, because the ladies that I work with, we work together. None of us are more ahead of the other. You know, we all share our traumas, we share our wins, we share everything, and it's so amazing. So I've gone into coaching, and I pretty much help moms just absolutely transform who they are, because essentially that's what I did. I completely transformed myself, and therefore my life just kind of flowed naturally. I didn't have to work on my marriage or my relationship with my kids. It just happened because I began to love myself. So that's essentially what I do. So I do coaching with the ladies. I do this in two forms. So I've got a course that you can do online. I do the one-on-one coaching as well. It's not something I offer all the time, so I just let them know in my group when I've got availability. And then the other thing is the membership. So becoming part of this community, having other ladies like you also come into our membership and do these discussions. We talk about stress, anxiety, we talk about our kids. So it's really been so amazing to just begin growing this community, because I think it's so important for not only moms, but that's my focus right now. Like, I've had two dads that I've worked with as well, but just for us to know and feel like we're not alone in this, because I think a lot of the time we completely lose our voice, and we choose to go through these struggles alone. But when we start to actually talk about it, we realize that there are other people going through these things as well. And it's pretty okay to not be okay sometimes, but there is a way out of it. So that's kind of what I've dedicated my life to now, and it's my absolute passion. I really believe that our trauma becomes our purpose in a strange way. I know it sounds so hard to be grateful for your trauma, because it does break us, but we grow from it, right?
Absolutely. So where can people find you?
So mainly on Facebook. I've just started this YouTube thing. I am like the worst when it comes to technology. So I am showing up as authentically me, because those are not edited, and I'm just boom, bang, slap, post. So you can find me on YouTube now as well. And of course, I think that my web link will be in this, you said underneath, I think. So you can also have a look there and get in touch with me. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. And what are your big dreams for your business?
I just want more and more women to just know that it's okay to just be you, just be you. You know, my course is called Authentically You, because that's essentially what we are all striving for. And I just want women to be supported more than anything. So just to create that community is more important to me than anything else. Reaching women from all over the world. You know, I'm an expat, so I know how lonely that can be as well, on top of being a mom. So just my dream for my business is just to bring us all together and collectively just raise our vibration, heal together, and break those generational cycles so that our kids don't have to go through the things that we've gone through. You know, and I've seen that with my daughter. Like, I know that I can't change a lot of things and I can't control her, but I see so much shifted in her. And she hasn't had a baby. She's older than 16. So I've broken at least one curse. So I just, you know, helping women realize that they are enough and that they are worthy of love, and they can give themselves that love every single day.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, I so appreciate you being here. I
Thank you
loved
for having me.
yes, I loved every bit of this. So much awesomeness within an hour. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable and sharing some of your backstory in order to inspire other women who are, going through, they're going through stuff, very similar stuff or different stuff, but can totally relate. So I appreciate you sharing some of that with us. For those of you that are listening that resonated with Terri and her story, make sure you check out her social media, her website, link with her, connect with her, and continue to build your own community with individuals who are supportive and loving and wishing the best for you. And that's all that that's all. I think that's the number one priority. The number one priority in everyone's life should be to make sure
for all of us.
your community is healthy, and your community is for you and rooting for you in all areas of your life. So, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
I would love to see these online communities in real life. Like, that's just the thought, because that would be amazing. There's a lovely lady here in my community, and she holds women's circles, and I think that that's so amazing. So I would love to see more of this offline as well, and that's the only thought that I have with what you just said. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so amazing. I've been so looking forward to this, so I'm glad that it's done. Yes. And if anybody wants to connect with me, my inbox is always open.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share, make sure you reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others.